You're listening to the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. Greetings, Guardians. We are live, and welcome to episode 58. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're here live on YouTube or on the podcast platform of your choice. I'm Sultime. I'm here with Romance Girl, Green Stego, and Salliebug on this rather cool and cloudy morning here in Maine. What's it like in Texas?
Sunny.
Sunny, huh?
And 68 degrees and sunny. It's kind of nice weather.
Yeah.
That sounds lovely.
That does sound lovely. Shout out to our friends in North Carolina, South Carolina, that area of the country that is withstanding lots of rain and wind. And, of course, the folks down in Florida have been through a lot as well recently with the hurricane. We are very fortunate to have power and to be able to broadcast live. So let's get started right away. I think it's going to be a short episode because of real life issues that we have to get back to. I am looking at the first slide here. Let's see what it has to say. There's our logo, of course. Recent activities. Oh, it's been only 1 week since our last episode, but we're trying to get back on schedule here. Has anybody had a chance to play the game?
Yes. We had got on a couple times this week. After work, we completed the story segment for this week.
Yeah, mostly just stuck to the weekly quest. We haven't done a lot of Destiny.
Without spoiling anything, are there any big shockers in the storyline?
Not as big as the Mithrax reveal, but definitely keeping us interested.
Ah, yes, the Mithrax reveal. Salliebug, did you get a chance to get on at all this week?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you and I have been kind of like on a quest to try to stay current on leveling because we did not get to, as a matter of fact, last season we didn't even attempt a Grandmaster because we never got to the level where we needed to be. Try one. And
right.
So
I don't even know what that level is.
I don't know what the
Grandmaster
Nightfall
Nightfalls.
is.
Does anybody know?
But
it's like 1595 or something like that, I want to say.
But I don't know what the minimum level is. I think it might be, I don't know, maybe 1590. I don't know. I've got a cat rubbing all over my Chromebook here.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of... let's just get that out of the way. There's going to be a lot of cat noise.
At any rate, but so as a result of us trying to kind of stay current on the light level, we're actually choosing to do activities that give us pinnacle gears over the storyline. Like we're prioritizing pinnacle activities as opposed to prioritizing the current story because those tend to be easier to catch up on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so we did the dungeon. We did not duality because
Pit of Heresy.
We don't seem to be able to do that one yet.
No, we can't
But we did
two-person
Pit of
duality.
Heresy. Yeah, because Sultime has soloed Pit of Heresy, so he's quite familiar with it.
Lots of dying.
Yeah, and that was a while ago, but it made you very familiar with the encounter.
So we've been basically pinnacle chasing.
So we did that, and then I think we did the 3 Vanguard strikes, and that's about all we've had time for this week. Hopefully, amidst all the family stuff that's
there's a lot going on this weekend. We'll be lucky if we can get on and get that story done this weekend, but maybe Monday if nothing's planned. Monday night.
maybe, or I don't think there's anything going on tonight. If so, that might be a possibility. At any rate, that's in the basic activity, basically what we've done this week anyway.
And what I'm curious, the Mithrax reveal. Any impressions on that?
Well, we're going to be talking about that a little bit in the lore segment, but...
Oh, that's right. It's Touch of Grimoire returns. Woohoo! I'm looking forward to it.
But it was interesting, that connection, that there was, like, that they've connected as they have, basically throughout this year and the development of the story, but connecting again the pyramids and the darkness and the witness to all of the other different races. Mm-hmm. So now we know that the witness has also had some influence. Well, the darkness, not just the witness, but the darkness has had some influence over the Elixni as well.
Well, I have to tell you, I did hop on right before the podcast just to do some clan XP on my hunter. And I was sporting Mithrax Whisper, the glaive, and having a lot of fun with it, to be honest. Yeah.
Hopefully it's not going to influence you as much as other relics have influenced.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but okay. Are we good to go on to our next segment?
Yeah. No. I mean, yes.
Now we can hear the purring come through the mic. We know
It's like the no is no. You cannot rub your face all over my microphone.
Oh, that's who you're talking to somebody else.
Just turn over the computer.
You know what? I'm just going to give her my earbuds and the mic and let her kind of finish this off, finish my part off.
It's what the viewers want.
And or listeners.
It is her season after all.
It's what
She's
the viewer
a black
wants,
cat, and
singular.
we're in black cat season, so this is her month to shine.
So one of the cool things about, or one of my favorite things about going back to a morning time slot for the live broadcast is we get to bring back the Coffee Boutique segment. So let's do that. Let's let the intro play.
Do it.
The Paracasual Destiny podcast presents Eva Levante's Coffee Boutique.
I could use some coffee.
Well, you're not the only one, Eva. We could all use some coffee. And I understand, Salliebug, there's some freshly brewed coffee down there now.
There absolutely is. If you wouldn't mind, since I am still a little bit laid up with my knee.
If y'all could talk amongst yourselves for a moment, I'm going to get some coffee refills from Eva. She's in our kitchen right now. So, BRB.
All right. So, Stego and Romance Girl, do you guys have your coffee?
Yeah, I have a iced coffee espresso roast from HEB. I'm looking over at Stego, and I don't think he's taken even one sip of his coffee. So.
Oh no! How is that even
What's going on
possible?
over there?
I've had this.
Yeah,
much
what's
coffee.
going on?
I'm having the same refrigerated coffee, the same chilled iced coffee. Mine is black. It's espresso roast, and it is delicious. I have had some sips.
I had a couple splashes of coconut milk in mine.
Oh, yum. For me, it's first. We probably have brought this up before, but for me, I enjoy almond milk in my iced coffee. I don't like the
aftertaste of the almond.
Right, I know it's.
That's why I go for the coconut, but I do an almond coconut blend.
The almond milk that we get is the vanilla unsweetened, and so maybe just like that vanilla, adding that like vanilla.
Yeah, I love that in my my cereal. That's my go-to for cereal. Vanilla unsweetened almond milk to our listeners out there. I know this is cheating because it's only tangentially related to coffee. But unsweetened vanilla almond milk is the best milk for cereal.
I will piggyback on that and say that I use that. We often for work make like an overnight oats concoction, and I also use that
All different
unsweetened
types
vanilla.
of cereal. You got your flaked
Right.
oat cereal.
Right, so it's oats and that unsweetened vanilla almond, and it's just like when the oats soak into that milk, it's just really good.
A bowl of cereal is probably our favorite dessert in this house.
Yeah, we go to that as well. Oh, that is good.
Yeah, it is. I just got back.
So I had another coffee question for you guys, and that is, notice often you're drinking iced coffee. Do you prefer iced coffee over hot coffee? Or is it like 50-50?
I think for taste, it's more 50-50, but for convenience, I have the issue of taking a sip of my hot coffee and being like, oh, that's the best thing I've ever had. And then I set it down and I look over 30 minutes later and my coffee is ruined because I forgot about it. So I think iced coffee from that standpoint is just more patient with me.
I'm a slow one too. I'll go periods of time that half the cup gets cold.
Too easy, and I don't want to be distracted from my coffee, but it happens so often that we just started doing iced coffee as just a way to avoid that. But I still love a good cup of hot coffee, especially when it's a little chilly out.
Right. Eva doesn't just sell coffee at her boutique. She also has other drink products. And we've been shout out to Ransom Rider, who is a streamer that we've been watching lately. And he loves Destiny 2. I've never seen someone have such joy playing a video game as Ransom does when he's playing Destiny 2. And he fuels his playtime with green tea. And we actually asked him, the podcast sent a special message over to him asking if he could recommend a brand of green tea for the uninitiated in that area. Most green tea I've had in the past, very bitter. So I am looking to like a green tea, and he recommended the organic green tea that has the panda on it. He did not give me the brand name. He did not want to get into any legal trouble, I think. So shout out to Ransom for that suggestion. We are certainly going to try it. I'm sure it's if it comes from Ransom, it's Eva approved. And the other thing, Salliebug, I don't know if you mentioned this, but at work in the afternoon, we've been doing some Red Rose English breakfast tea in the afternoons. And that is worth a shout out to our good friend Pelham, who carries us. He and his brother Ghost carry us through many a end game activity. They are the high end players of our clan. So shout out to them. Yeah, I had to get that in there. The green tea from Ransom and the Red Rose English breakfast. I don't think that's what Pelham drinks. I don't know what his brand is. Maybe
I was going to say I'm surprised that Pelham would go for the Red Rose.
No, I don't think that's what he drinks.
More like a classic breakfast blend kind of guy.
I mean, we've talked PG tips, right?
Yeah, I think he does PG tips. Maybe. I don't know that either that or some other.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the tea options over there are very similar to like what our coffee options are over here.
Right.
So it's just like go in and they just get kind of like any English breakfast. They're probably much better than the English breakfast options we have over here.
One would hope.
Your English breakfast is like basically black tea, right? Is that correct?
I don't think Pelham drinks it black.
No, I
No,
mean black tea.
Black tea.
Oh, the tea itself. Sure.
It's usually a blend, but I think it's black tea. I'm not sure what else is in there.
Cool.
Okay, obviously I'm not British.
Well,
Don't know my
hopefully this
tea.
week we'll try some green tea, and we'll continue with our Red Rose expedition, and we'll report back on the next episode.
Yeah, I'm
our
waiting to
experiences.
have, like, I just need to have a cup of green tea. Like, for me, it's that bitterness. So a way to cut it to, like, maybe it's just we haven't brewed it correctly. Or we just
Ransom
haven't
recommends
gotten
fresh lemon, a squeeze of fresh lemon in it.
He
I still
would.
don't-
I'm not myself not a tea person. I'll occasionally have a chamomile
I mean,
at
at the
nighttime.
That sounds Eva approved as well. The
See,
I could
I've
see
been
her
known,
drinking
like, if
that.
I'm going to go towards tea, for the most part, for me, I do like the kind of black tea English breakfast with a splash of some kind of milk and a teaspoon of sugar. But I don't like my coffee sweet at all, so.
Just a teaspoon of sugar.
No, we've just kind of went from coffee to tea, but that's okay because they serve tea at almost every
at every Eva
place.
Levante's boutique in the Midwest. I have an idea. A great idea for the
let's hear it.
podcast. Let's go to our next segment, which is the Touch of Grimoire segment.
Sounds good.
I'm looking through the glass at our producer, who's ready to roll the intro. The Paracasual Destiny podcast presents A Touch of Grimoire with your host, Salliebug. Salliebug, you want to talk to us about some of the lore?
Yeah, so based on the information, and we alluded to this earlier, based on the information that we got last week of, like, just some information based on Mithrax past, dark past, and I kind of wanted to go over his basic timeline, his storyline, and then just the storyline of the Elixni in general as well, but as Mithrax fits into that. So I don't know, should we read our Touch of Grimoire first and then just kind of take it from there? I think that might be the way to go.
From the Ketchkillers gauntlets. Steer your ship true, as trust is rare among the deep stars. Mithrax. Elixni Quarter, Last City. The old crews, yes, I have gathered much information about them in the past weeks. In fact, I have just finished going over my notes. The old crews rose in the wake of the whirlwind, during what we Elixni refer to as the Long Drift, the span of time between the fall of Reese and our arrival in the Sol System. I believe the equivalent period would be your Dark Ages, though Reese did not have Risen or Iron Lords. Instead, we had the crews. As you can imagine, this period was quite lawless, as the stability and abundance of Reese was no more. This resulted in what I believe is called a zero-sum game, a situation in which every gain or advantage is earned at the expense of another. Several fearsome individuals rose to great power and authoritative prominence at that time. The Elixni word for them translates to Ketchkiller, meaning one who boards and wrests control of enemy ships. These Ketchkillers commanded great fleets and raided many supply routes, procuring objects of historic or intrinsic value along the way. It is exciting to wonder what treasures they accumulated beyond those we've recovered already. Many crews were abolished or disbanded over time, but those that survived did so through great hardship. They are formidable indeed, but then so is the Vanguard and its guardians. Thank you for asking about my research into the old crews and their significance. It is always a pleasure to talk about it. After all, what use is knowledge if it is not shared?
All right, so thank you, Stego, for reading our lore.
Excellent
And-
narration.
I wanted to talk a little bit, right? Not a little bit, maybe a lot. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. About Mithrax. And so, this time that was discussed in this lore piece. So Mithrax was actually born during this period, the Long Drift. He was born upon a ship, a ketch, as you will, because after the destruction of Reese, the Elixni are basically surviving on these ketches. They all have are floating. Now, the one thing I wasn't quite clear on, but that I kind of envision is that they're all kind of like floating during this drift on these ketches and kind of like living on the ketches. But they're still kind of having these, and I don't know if there's multiple catches per house, but they still have like these banners, right? The banners of their houses. Kind of like, I guess, what we would consider clans, right? Something like that. So Mithrax was born during this long drift to a mother called Enax, and the house at the time was called the House of the Gentle Weavers. So they're drifting through, and this kind of all came out, this story part, I think, kind of basically came out during that, the lore, that we got last week. But he's born to Enox. It's a time of it's pretty severe. They're just kind of living for survival. They are just trying to scrap at any resources they can to stay alive. At some point in that story, they're ending up having to resort to eating their own, to not just to survive, basically. And at some point during this time, Mithrax is born. At some point, Enax is actually struggles to decide whether or not to even keep him, but decides to for whatever reason, I guess out of hope. And while he is a hatchling, they come across another ketch, which is the ketch of the House of Dreams, I think.
Of Dancers.
House of Dancers, yes. I'm sorry. House of Dancers. And within that catch, they send over an emissary to the House of Gentle Weavers catch, and that emissary is none other than Aramis. And at first they think, no, we're just going to pirate. We're just going to ransack them. We're going to take all that we can. But at some point they decide to kind of form an alliance of some sort. And that alliance is they made a trade where the House of Dancers decides to give them, you say, if you take care of some of our people, we'll give you some ether to do so, and then you in turn can give us some of the supplies that you've amassed over the years that will help us make repairs to our ships. And in that trade were Raucus and Civix, two other hatchlings, brothers, one of whom is Spider. So Spider and Mithrax are hatchlings together. They grow up. They're not brothers per se, but kind of adopted brothers, I guess I would about it. They grow up as they're during this time frame. At some point, they come across the tomb of Nezarec. And find that in this tomb there are relics or artifacts that have great power. Mithrax inherits one of these artifacts and ends up getting, quote unquote, its power. This is by the storyline told by Erasmus. Its power ensnared him. He sought more, no matter the cost. Over time, the relics were lost, and then Mithrax fled from his past. So it's like kind of like, and this is like where I'm coming into the gray area here. By the way, House of Weavers becomes House of Wolves, and the House of Dancers became the House of Devils. So I think their sigil stayed the same, but their names kind of changed. You notice in the beginning, both of those houses had kind of like peaceful names, right? House of Weavers and House of Dancers, peaceful. And then they turned into kind of like, more, more, the names were a little more aggressive, I guess is a way to word it. But this is where I get kind of confused in the timeline and would like actually a little bit of help or like thoughts or what your thoughts might be. Because we do know that during the time of the House of Wolves, Mithrax was a vandal. And that was when we know, like the storyline, which I think we've talked about before, was where he was captured by Sir Ido, the Awoken, during one of those conflicts. And that we know during that capture, he became more of an ally to her and started along his path to being more, encompassing of joining forces with others. The other time that we have had interaction with Mithrax's storyline was in that story mission, Enemy of My Enemy, where he's listed as Mithrax the Forsaken. At that point, he's a captain, and he gives us that reactor that we're looking for. He just gives it to us and disappears. So, my question to you and our audience is, where within this storyline, because if you watched the block art story that Aramis is telling, it shows Mithrax as either a captain or even a Kell during his time when he is kind of like possessed by this Nezarax artifact. Yet when we have him in the storyline of the his storyline where he interacts with Sir Ido, he's a vandal. So, and then of course the Enemy of My Enemy, he's a captain. So the storyline and how it where does or where do you think this time frame where where he gets possessed by the Nezarax artifacts? You think the Awoken interactions happened prior to that happening, or was it? Did he?
No, I mean you've described a lot from the lore book from this season. Above all else.
Mm-hmm.
And only the first 3 entries of 4 I've unlocked. I don't know if they're time locked or if it's a triumph I haven't unlocked yet.
Right.
But they describe him getting this piece from this relic from his mother, like just as it's like a coming to age story. So he hasn't left his original house at that point. So I don't think there's this back and forth. I'm not sure about him being a vandal. I don't know if he like from malnourishment went back to being a vandal and came back.
I'm wondering if like when he abandoned his past, when he abandoned that part of his life, he almost demoted himself.
Yeah, I do know that it has to do with like the amount of ether they consume.
Right.
And I am not 100% on there.
So maybe that, yeah, maybe, you know, he kind of like artificially promoted himself through just thinking that he had more power than he did because of the artifact, and artificially rose himself to power, and then realized that this is
where. Do you happen to know the lore entry where he's referred to as a vandal? Because that's like.
It's. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but it's part of the I'm trying to pronounce that right, Ido story, where, you know, that and I think we talked about this actually in a Touch of Grimoire many moons ago. During that interaction, that first interaction, he's described as a vandal. He gets captured by the Awoken.
I remember the lore. I just don't remember him being described as a vandal. So that would be something I would have to revisit.
Yeah, and I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure he was described as a vandal in that storyline originally.
The other lore book, though, the Above All Else, I think you just hit upon the first and the second book, but the third book, the third entry in that kind of leaves on a as like a bit of a cliffhanger. It was a dramatic moment.
Oh, well, I'll have to read. I haven't read that third lore book, so I'm gonna definitely need to do that. Don't want to do any spoilers and so forth. But the other thing I was going to ask is, like, where do you think that, like, where within this time frame is it like where he like actually ends up giving us that reactor in Enemy of My Enemy? Because he's considered, I think my guess would be this would be around that time, like after, you know, he had kind of allied with the Awoken, but at that point the Elixni were not quite on board with that kind of alliance, and so he kind of became a bit of an outcast, and only had a few Elixni followers. Am I getting that right, or is that your understanding?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, we do know obviously that the houses were divided, and you know that was very much part of the storyline with Beyond Light when that first dropped, right? That there was the Aramis who's like getting power from the darkness and getting stasis, and then you have.
Do vandals only have 4 arms, or do we know how many arms each of them have, or do they all have? It's only the dregs that get their arms torn off.
Right. I think it's the dregs. The dregs are demoted. You know, when they become dregs, it's like it's part of. They call it docking.
Yeah,
they call it docking
because that comes up in a lore book this week too.
I was going to say, I actually did read that lore, yeah. You know, where Mithrax tells Spider that they're not doing that anymore, that is not going to be part of.
Yeah, I think that was a few weeks ago, actually.
So yeah, I did actually read that lore. So yeah, I think that. Any thoughts, Stego or Soul Time, or are you just for the ride?
I don't know what the question is. Sorry.
Any thoughts?
Any thoughts on the whole lore?
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Do you have anything to add, or do you have any takeaways from this story, or what you're feeling about it?
I love the story of Mithrax. I would like more backstory of what it was like to be a space pirate, to go from their old solar system to us. I'm excited to get more lore.
It's complex, as we're finding with any of these leaders. They have complicated pasts, and it is very much interesting to find out this season that Mithrax and Spider excuse me, basically grew up together.
Well, I'd be interested in learning more about Jur Ido.
She was the first Queen's Wrath and Marasov's lover. The Reef Wars. No, she was killed during the Reef Wars.
We touched upon that story quite a bit in a Touch of Grimoire a long time ago. But now, circling back.
I am also hoping we get more Dreaming City Awoken tie-ins. I'm
Absolutely.
ready.
I feel like it's time to get back into that, into the Awoken. I feel like Mara is going to come back soon. I mean, we we already know there's it's come up in a couple of lore pieces about Mara and Spider. We already know that there's conflict, I guess is the best way to word it. So I feel like that is going to come out, whether it's going to come out this season or if it's going to come up later. But I feel like she is definitely going to come back into the Awoken in general, that Awoken storyline. I always hold that the alliance we have with the Awoken has always been just slightly, hangs on by a thread to quote Savathun, right? It's just it feels like it is not 100% a solid bond.
Does anybody remember the Queen's presence in the tower at the beginning of D1?
I remember the emissary of the Queen. I remember there being like a live event where she was like behind that like the doors that are usually closed, that in the back,
right,
where Saladin was when the Iron Banner was alive. And there was like one event where she was there before before the reef opened. This is, I think, before even Dark Below.
Yeah, this actually might have even been before I got on D1, where I started playing, about the time, because I have a vague memory of it, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, they were still figuring out what live events were, and they were still figuring out Petravenge's look, because it was Petravenge, but she just looked like an Awoken. She didn't have her iconic.
I just I could imagine if I had like all that extra time that I would like have like on one of my walls, like the lore with like different colored yarn connecting all the different pieces.
Well, speaking of limited time, let's get into our last segment here of non-Destiny media consumption.
Non-Destiny media consumption.
Romance Girl or Green Stego, what have you been up to?
Well, Romance Girl suddenly is experiencing technical issues.
I came back. Okay. Just as you didn't notice I left, I didn't notice I came back. Mostly the same stuff as last week, but I did want to give a shout out to Tetris Effect Connected. It's just a cool, it's Tetris, but with like 3D effects. Very cool, like
fun.
music, and the background interacts with you, like changing the shape of the I forget what they're called, tetroids. Something like that.
Right.
But it's just a lot of fun. It's a really good take on it. It's on Game Pass. It's on Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
It's also on most consoles now. You can buy it. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just Tetris, but it just they added a lot to make it really like just, it's so fun to just zone out to.
And on your new Series X, I'm
And even
sure
like there's levels where each time you move it, you're affecting the soundtrack too. Like you're making the soundtrack with your movements.
That's clever.
It's just so cool.
How about you, Green Stego? What have you been consuming? Work?
Yeah, work. When you're a teacher, you go to work, and when you come home, you're so exhausted. Just feed yourself, feed the cats, and go to sleep.
Yep. That's basically it.
We're still watching the same things. Rings of Power this week was amazing. A big payoff episode. And excited to watch some of our anime that we've been watching is returning for another season today. So gonna watch Spy Family right after this.
Nice.
More coffee and breakfast.
Salliebug, did we miss anything? What have you been up to?
Well, yeah, we were co-teacher and I were looking to try to find something to do, something to read aloud to the class for the end of the week, a way to wind down. And in my searching for something, I found October in the Chair, a short story by my favorite author, Neil Gaiman. And unfortunately, kind of decided that it may not, just for the population of students that we had, may not be 100% appropriate for them. I think probably once you got to the middle grades, like school times grades, probably fine, but you're still not quite sure with the lower grades. So we ended up but I ended up reading the whole thing and then ended up listening to the whole thing, narrated by Neil Gaiman. So good. It's, very kind of like definitely, and it's like a story within a story, which is kind of fun. Great way to weave a story into it. And because of coming across that, it makes me, a lot of people say this was kind of like the precursor to is the Graveyard Book. That he's very much well known for, which now makes me want to go back and read that. So again, similar to Soul Time, it's like something I want to do, haven't done yet. But we did watch it because of me like being reintroduced to Neil Gaiman. Picked back up and watched a couple episodes of Sandman. We haven't gotten through that. We watched a couple episodes last night, and as always, those episodes do not disappoint. So if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it.
Well, that about wraps it up. Thanks for tuning in. This has been episode 58 of the Paracasual Destiny podcast. Join us live on YouTube every other Saturday, generally speaking, at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And we'll be doing this hopefully next Saturday. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, it's goodbye from all of us here at the Paracasual Destiny podcast. Keep pushing back the darkness.
Bye.
Bye.
Said bye at the same time as Salliebug.
Yeah, my food does tend to